Morning. I love how our edges, the things that are not so necessary, are starting to kind of fall apart. I want to get us a gallery. There I go. I want to look at all of you. Because that's what, I have to tell you, I need you this morning. I really need the connection and the focus. And it's so good to see you. And I have this thought that all of you are seeing each other all the time, but you're not. I don't think you are either. We're all in our places. We're all in our perfect places. And the title of my talk today is L'chaim, to life. And a good friend of mine used to own a dye house where she dyed fabrics that then went to clothing factories. And one time she was given a tour of the Burlington factory where they actually make the garments in Greensboro, North Carolina. The plant was air conditioned and it was very hot and humid, of course, in North Carolina. So it was very comfortable in there for the workers. But they showed her something that they called the comfort testing room. And this was a glass walled room that you could see through, and it had uncomfortable furniture and it wasn't air conditioned. And they explained that comfort testing was a real burnout job, that college students would take it as long as they could stand it because they could study while they worked. And they would sit in that awful room and test the comfort of the clothing while they studied. They were made uncomfortable on purpose because comfortable people might not feel a scratchy seam or a loose button or a stray thread, but an uncomfortable person surely will. If you're uncomfortable to begin with, all your other discomforts are amplified. Well, this is the kind of time we're all experiencing, isn't it? With the pandemic, the sweltering heat, sheltering in place, fire, smoke, evacuations, unhealthy air, all these losses. Just before we started this morning, I got an email from my stepfather in Florida who said, "Are you okay?" I don't even know what to say to people when they say, "Are you okay?" You can't even imagine it the way we can imagine what we're living through. Uncertainty is sort of the rule of the day, affecting everything from the dependability of the post office to the possibility of an invisible illness. We are currently in a comfort testing experience, wouldn't you say? And I'm unsettled by it. I don't feel grounded. I don't feel like I like to feel. I feel like the air I'm breathing is not enough, and I'm feeling a little woozy in my head sometimes and headachy and weary. Raise your hand if that's going on for you as well. Yeah. I was thinking about the song. There was a song going through my head these last couple of weeks. The song Janis Joplin sang, the song by Chris Christopherson, me and Bobby McGee. It's not a particularly appropriate song for us this morning, but the line that freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. So in 1942, Albert Camus wrote this essay, and to decide whether life was worth living. He said to decide whether life is worth living is to answer the fundamental question of philosophy. Everything else is child's play. We must first of all answer the question. And sometimes life does give us this question, not as something to think about or talk about over a cup of tea or a beer or a glass of wine, but as this sort of gauntlet that's hurled at us, in this time of raw brutality. In that same year, 1942, a 37-year-old Viennese neurologist and psychiatrist named Viktor Frankl was taken to Auschwitz, the infamous concentration camp, along with 1 million human beings robbed of this basic right to answer this question for themselves. And instead, they were deemed unworthy of living. Some of them survived by reading, some of them by humor, some of them by chance, but 1.1 million of them did not survive. Frankl himself lost his mother, his brother, his father, his wife. It's been said that his own life was spared by the tightly braided lifeline of chance, choice, and character. But this is what really gets me. Only 11 months after he left the camps, after he survived the unsurvivable, he took up this elemental question in a set of lectures that he went on the road with called, "Is Life Worth Living?" That was the name of the lectures. And he himself took the set of lectures and published them himself into this slim book that he published himself the same time as Man's Search for Meaning was published. And many of you I know have heard of that book or read that book. We reread it in college, of course, and then, of course, in seminary we read it. And the book, Man's Search for Meaning, was originally called From Death Camp to Existentialism. So that's a whole other deal there. But this other book that he published himself is only recently available in English, so that's why it's kind of in the news, and I came across it. I haven't read the book, but I've read about it. Now, remember, when he came out of the camp, he had lost his family, his career, seemingly everything, and he found himself, you know, moving beyond what he said was optimism and beyond what he called pessimism to find this deepest source of meaning in himself. And the title of this book, this is the title of this little book that he wrote and published himself at the same time that Man's Search for Meaning was published. The name of this book is called Yes to Life in Spite of Everything. And that just moves me. You know, I think of him, I think of, I don't remember exactly the name of the book, but I have it on my bookshelf in the other room. And it's a story of a dialogue. It's a book of a dialogue between the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu talking about joy. And again, with their histories that found joy, that Frankl, who is much more of a mental person, he found meaning by being in this moment. And he began, you know, of course, with the question of whether life is worth living and noticing how the Holocaust disillusioned humanity with itself. He cautioned against this defeatist end of the world mindset, and he also cautions against this this naive optimism, even though seeing what human beings really can do with each other and to each other. He wrote, "We cannot move toward any spiritual reconstruction with a sense of fatalism. Today," he writes this in 1946, we're aware that inner progress is only actually possible for each individually. And while this, again, Holocaust, of course, disenchanted humanity, he also wrote that that which is human is still valid. That's all a question of the individual human being. What remained was the person, the human being, and nothing else. Everything had fallen away from them during those years, he writes. Money, power, fame, nothing was certain anymore, not health, happiness. It's all been called into question. Vanity, ambition, relationships, everything was reduced to bare existence. Everything that was not essential was melted down, kind of like an alchemy, you know, all the stuff that isn't, the impurities are burned out. And it's such an analogy for what we're going through right now. And you know, early on in the pandemic, it was like, well, good, I get to stay home. It's a quiet life now, but look how it's continued to morph and more for us. You know, that's one thing. Our only social life has been 6 feet distance in our backyard. And now, of course, we can't have that because of, you know, the smoke in the air, and how we're continually sort of pressed in and pressed into ourselves to find that. So we can wake up in the morning with a here I am now, and here I am now. So how then, of course, Frankl wonders, how do we find a sense of meaning when the world gives us ample view to find life is meaningless? The great Indian poet and philosopher Rabindranath Tagore, who, by the way, he was the first non-European to win the Nobel Prize, and he was also a conversation partner with Albert Einstein, and they would talk about science and spirituality. He wrote this: "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was duty. I worked and behold, duty was joy." And maybe this joy is a byproduct of living with authenticity and with integrity that rises spontaneously. That isn't the goal, it's a process, it's an outcome of this fulfillment that he called duty. Well, once upon a time, long, long ago, there was a monastery tucked inside of a valley between the foothills. And in this monastery lived a monk who felt that he was making no progress at all spiritually, even though he'd been in the monastery for years and years of practice and the monastic life. So he decided it was time to leave the monastery. So he set out on the valley floor and began this long journey and decided to return to his previous life as a fisherman. And he doesn't get very far at all, just heading out of the valley. He can still see the monastery in the distance. And he stubs his toe very badly on a stone while walking in his sandals. Very badly. He's in a lot of pain. He's in excruciating pain. And it's in that very moment that he is awakened. In an instant, he sees clearly. He sees that it doesn't matter where he is or what he's doing. Everything is crystallized in this absolute moment. Life is all occurring right now. It doesn't matter where he is. So he turns around and heads back to the monastery, and the monks go, "Hey, what happened? You made such a stink that nothing's going on here, that nothing's really worth anything." And he says, "It doesn't matter where I am. It's all right now." And with that knowing, it's the most freeing thing of all. So how have you been doing with that? It's a constant, I don't want to call it a battle. It's not a battle. It's a constant practice to remind and remind, because the stakes keep getting higher. I mean, right now it's our own breath that's being compromised. And there's nowhere to go. There's no escape. It's right now we're being pressed into this moment. And I could say that to you in Santa Rosa, and some of you might be a little further out, but this is what holds us together, isn't it? This unity of Santa Barbara. I'm here in Napa. We're in this amazing experience. And when all is taken away, what we have left is how we respond. Frankl talks about that quite clearly in Man's Search for Meaning, that it's the meaning that we make of everything. It's whatever we, I guess, even make up. Yes to life in spite of everything, for there's nothing left to lose. I've probably shared this parable with you before, because maybe it's my favorite. It's from Matthew. The kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. On finding one pearl of great value, he went and sold all that he had and bought it. The kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God. It's so incredible to me how all the biblical writers and the gospel writers, I mean, we don't know if Jesus said this. I mean, we know that it's written by Matthew that this parable was taught. And how do you teach this consciousness? And the only words that they knew, Moses, not that he said it, it was a fire burning that would never go out. That just didn't consume itself. Sometimes we feel that in our heart, don't we? That passion, that excitement, that connection to spirit. Elijah talked about that it wasn't in the whirlwind, and it wasn't in the earthquake, and it wasn't in the fire. God wasn't there, but God was in the still small voice. The kingdom of heaven is like looking for a pearl, and when you find it, you give away everything to get that one thing, that consciousness, that knowing, that absolute presence in this moment, no matter what's going on around us. In my personal practice, what I've been working with is the power of distraction. The power of distraction. I mean, I've got a great power of distraction, and how to be in the moment, in my breath, in my body, and let those thoughts just go by. Not to get rid of them, not to judge them, because that's just what happens. But how can I separate myself from getting hooked in to those things, opinions and judgments, I mean my own, and all that. So we have to find our own meaning. And in doing so, we regain and retain our body, our mind, our spirit, how to retool ourselves. Perhaps to sell or to lose all that we have. That's extraneous. Frankl would say that we understand freedom. We love the liberty part. We forget the responsibility part. He thought, because he ended up moving to the United States, he lived in the New York area. that the Statue of Liberty is in New York, but in San Francisco, we should have a Statue of Responsibility and be able to balance the two. So how am I, how are you making meaning during this time of pandemic, of uncertainty? And maybe after the service, we can even maybe talk about this for a minute or two. You can share, let that sort of, I'm going to ask you some other questions to ponder, and maybe we can have a few moments with that. That this heart of life is this quest for meaning, and then how do I take responsibility for who I am? How do I live in my truth and my integrity right now? I mean, you're seeing people start to unravel, right? I mean, if not in your own lives, your own families, we're seeing it nationally. And, you know, it gets a little scary when I start to feel that I'm unraveling, and I feel like I am some mornings, some days, sometimes. You know, yesterday afternoon or yesterday evening, an artist friend of the group he's involved with in Berkeley had a virtual gallery opening. And we were invited to it, you know, on Zoom with our glass of wine. So we're in the kitchen watching this. It was just an hour. But each artist gave a tour of their studio and then highlighted some of their work. And afterwards, I was so uplifted. It was like, that's right. I don't have to just sit in this mess that I've created in my mind all the time. There are people doing wonderful things. You know, we do feel a little zoomed out, don't we? I mean, I've got way too much time on this small screen, and my eyes are starting to feel it. And, you know, I need to look away. Oh, look far to the far, and then come back and look here. So I'm just going to ask some questions to just ponder. What do you know in your own heart, in your heart of hearts, about your own life being worth living? And what's worth, I notice some people are writing. I'm going to just say it again then, okay? I'll just ask the question. I'll just say it long enough if you want to write it down. What do you know in your heart of hearts about your own life being worth living? And what's worth holding on to? And what's being released, either consciously or unconsciously, by these current circumstances of the activities outside of ourselves that we're not causing? We haven't created it. We may have contributed a little bit to climate change, but not in any great big way. The responses that from others who live in other parts of the country and the world who don't really know what's going on here and what it's like to feel every breath constricted. What's it like living through a heightened awareness of what social and political justice destroys and creates? Heightened awareness of social and political justice destroying and creating this time. And maybe something I'm getting a little stuck in, but it's useful, is how has your lifetime of choices led you to this now? The life you have now, the lifestyle you have now, the people in your life, the choices that you've made. What has been that thread for you? What has run you? I know for me, some of it has been fear of not having or not being or whatever. So I've gone one way when I could have maybe gone another way. And then not judging myself for that, but having a kind of supreme compassion right now. And what's left to lose? We think the pandemic's enough. All right, it's not even fire season yet. Look at this. I was looking up deities of the wind because I wanted some wind to come through. And so I wanted a goddess, you know, and I found Aura, A-U-R-A. Aura is a goddess. I don't remember which distinction, who she's from or what peoples or what time. So I'm just like invoking Aura to come by and blow the wind and get this stuck air moving. So what does all this have to do with our inner life, or soul work, or that which is who you are no matter what, that spark of divinity, that wave in the ocean, as Eric Butterworth said, not like a raisin in a bun, but like a drop of water in the ocean, that connects us. Well, this coming Friday, next Friday night, is the beginning of the 8 days of awe. The days of awe. It's the Jewish New Year. It's Rosh Hashanah. I meant to look up what year it is, but I don't know what year that is. It's 57 something. And the observant reflect on the blessings and challenges of the past year, and look forward to this coming year with hope and renewed sense of commitment and purpose. And it culminates with Yom Kippur, which is the real day of fasting and reflection and letting go. And that at sundown on Yom Kippur, the book of the year closes and the new year begins. The observant dip apples in honey as a first act to usher in a sweet new year and greet others with Lashana Tova. May you have a sweet new year. So yes, L'chaim. Yes to life in spite of everything. There's nothing left to lose. Let's take the time now to get quiet inside. Whatever it is you do to relax mind and body. Feel the seat beneath you supporting you completely. It said that the place where you are right now, God circled on the map for you. Where you are right now, the place you are right now, is where God circled on the map for you. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, because that is exactly where you are. There's a cosmic intelligence in you that responds to you when you acknowledge it. And we communicate with this cosmic inner intelligence by our awareness of it, by that inner awareness. And probably the best way to establish this communication is by sitting calmly and opening ourselves to the wisdom of this intelligence. And so as you continue to affirm yourself, to plant yourself in this moment, I'd like to share some words from Myrtle Fillmore. I found myself going back to Myrtle Fillmore, to this book, How to Let God Help You. It sort of jumped out at me from my bookcase. I don't think I'd looked at it for 30 years. But the title, in the middle of the night, one night when I couldn't sleep, jumped out at me. How to Let God Help You. And these are from her healing letters way back, some of it from 1890s. So imagine Myrtle is speaking to you. She's co-founder of Unity, and it was her inner work that really developed the moment. So she called God He and all that sort of thing, but just let it translate for you if you need it to be. But get the essence of these words as you continue to go deep inside, She writes, I just want to come in and have a visit with you. Let us forget all that has pressed itself in upon us to make us sometimes feel that God the good is not all in all. Here, in the silence, we shall know the presence of God and see clearly just how we are to go about living the life that He is giving us, so we may bring forth the order, beauty, and freedom that He has planned and that are now awaiting our understanding use. But let's not go too far into metaphysics of this wonderful thing. Instead, we are here together just to rest quietly and happily in reality. As we do this, a real transformation will be worked in us and for us. We shall reap the good fruits of our study, our affirmation, and our meditation. The spiritual truth is that you are God's own beloved child, and that God is ever giving you his own wisdom, love, power, life, and substance. So in this time of constricted breathing, we remember that our lungs are made to be a filter. And so deeply we breathe in through our nostrils. For that way, the breath goes more fully and more swiftly down into the lungs. We remember that the lungs are situated all the way down to the end of the rib cage in the front and equally in the back body. And so I invite you now to breathe fully in the front and the back of your body, filling your lungs with this life-giving breath. And yes, we are compromised by the particles in the air right now, but that does not deter us. We are children of God, and we are healed and transformed moment by moment. And so continue to breathe fully, not with effort, but just with fullness and awareness. And allow your torso to just fill with that breath. And when you're ready to have a quick, brief pause, and to exhale also through the nostrils. And do that slowly and lovingly at your own pace. 2 or 3 more. Noticing as you inhale, you find your whole torso lengthening and your sit bones getting more solid and grounded in the seat beneath you. As you exhale, you just let go. And continuing in your own rhythm and your own pace. Allow your attention to continue to be on the breath. No effort, no pushing, no grabbing, no grasping. Just simply filling and letting go. And as you find yourself being caught by a thought, because that's what happens always, compassionately and lovingly, just let that thought go by. Let it just disappear. Because that's what happens with it when we let it go. And return to the breath, to this awareness. In this room where we all are, 27 of us together, breathing, loving ourselves, and letting go. And we'll spend a few moments, a few minutes now in the silence, the blessed silence. And slowly Gently allowing your conscious mind to return to this here and now. And listen to a few more words from Myrtle. Allow your eyes to stay closed or open, whatever is okay for you in your way. She tells us the real purpose of your life is to express the creation of God, to unfold the many departments of your mind, to unfold the many departments of your mind which God has planned for you and which will enable you to know and to do God's will. When you know that there is nothing for you to worry about or to fear, you may then relax and feel happy. When you know that living as God has planned it, here and now, is beautiful, and that you can know just what God's plans are for you, you will really be interested in living, won't you? We asked at the beginning, is life worth living? Well, I say the affirmative. It is. For we are one mind, one heart, one compassionate, loving, vulnerable, beating heart. Shalom, namaste, Lashana Tova, L'chaim, to life in spite, yes to life in spite of everything. And so be it. Thank you. I just thought I wanted to share with you Myrtle Fillmore's poem, My Faith, dated 1897. I do not believe in evil, I believe in good. I do not believe in sin, I believe in truth. I do not believe in want, I believe in abundance. I do not believe in death, I believe in life. I do not believe in ignorance, I believe in intelligence. There are no discords in my being. Being is peace. My faith, understanding, and love are becoming one. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. And so we go out into this day, into our world, our inside world and outside world that's inside. And we know that all is well in God's mind and right here. And so it is.